and welcome to the fiscal year 2022 HMIS Data Standards Training. My name is Nicole Henson, and I am an HMIS System Administrator for Fresno Housing. Fresno Housing is the HMIS lead agency for the Fresno Madera Continuum of Care. This training is required for all FMCOC HMIS users regardless of project type or funding source. In this presentation, we will cover the fiscal year 2022 HMIS data standard changes, as well as how these changes will impact both data collection and data entry. HMIS is a database used to collect client-level data and data on the provision of housing and services to homeless individuals and families and persons at risk of homelessness. The HMIS data standards have been established by HUD, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs to allow for standardized data collection on homeless individuals and families across systems. HMIS data can help us understand who we are serving better. Because an HMIS has the capacity to integrate data from all homeless service providers in the community and to capture basic descriptive information on every person served, it is a valuable resource for communities. HMIS also provides data across the country. Collecting accurate data consistently allows us to contribute to the national perspective. Here is the most recent data from the 2020 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, or AHAR. The AHAR is delivered to Congress every year. According to the report, more than half of the people experiencing homelessness in the country were in 4 states: California, New York, Florida, and Texas. HMIS made some of this data possible, and this is just one reason why data matters. So, what's with all of these HMIS changes? HUD updates the HMIS data standards every few years in order to improve its ability to collect and analyze gaps in homelessness services across the nation. The data standards were last updated in June 2020. The new fiscal year 2022 HMIS data standards will be effective October 1st, 2021, which is the beginning of the 2022 fiscal year. Our software vendor, WellSky, will implement these new data standards into a first iteration for us to build off of. The HMIS team will then ensure the correct assessments are available for use for each project within our system. The changes to Service Point will not be totally apparent to end users until the corresponding tables and data fields are updated by the HMIS team. Once the changes have been updated, the HMIS team will communicate this information to all end users. Please note that there will be a specific time period during implementation that users will not be allowed to access the system. The HMIS team will do their very best to ensure this does not interfere with any of your day-to-day data entry, but in the case it does, we will let you know. The 2022 HMIS data standards were released on May 7, 2021. It is mandatory and expected that all HMI users will review this presentation no later than September 24th. Once users have completed this training, the HMIS team will then be holding Coffee Talk office hours September 27th through the 29th. Although the Coffee Talk sessions are not mandatory, users who may have questions or concerns about any of the new data standard changes should attend and be prepared to ask questions. It is then expected that WellSky, our software vendor, will have all of the new data standards updated to our system on or about September 30th. Once these changes are updated, the HMIS team will ensure that all updated appropriate HMIS assessments are correct and are available for use by each respective project within our system. Data collection forms will also be updated by October 1st, 2021. All available data standards materials for the fiscal year 2022 are posted to the HUD Exchange and include the HMIS Interactive Data Standards Tool, the HMIS Data Standards Dictionary, and the HMIS Data Standards Manual, version 1.0. Later versions of the manual may be released in the near future. All users will be notified if and when a newer version is released. We will now discuss changes to the Universal Data Elements. Universal Data Elements, better known as UDEs, are elements required to be collected by all projects entering data into HMIS regardless of funding source. UDEs are the basis for producing unduplicated estimates of the number of people experiencing homelessness, accessing services from homeless assistance projects, basic demographic characteristics of people experiencing homelessness, and patterns of service use, including information on shelter stays and homelessness over time. Data elements 3.01 through 3.07 are required to be collected once per client, regardless of how many project stays that client has in the system. Data elements 3.08 through 3.917 are to be collected at least once per project stay. You will notice that most elements need to be collected for all household members, and some only need to be collected for adults only. Major universal data element changes included changes to race, ethnicity, and gender. Revisions were made to race descriptions and labeling to provide more inclusionary and representative language for all demographics. Remember that all of this data is self-reported. As you will see, American Indian or Alaska Native is now American Indian, Alaska Native, or Indigenous. Asian is now Asian or Asian American. Black or African American is now Black, African American, or African. And Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander is now Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. Revisions were made to ethnicity descriptions and labeling to provide more inclusionary and representative language for all demographics. Hispanic Latino is now Hispanic Latina, Latino, Latinx, and non-Hispanic non-Latino is now non-Hispanic, non-Latina, non-Latino, and non-Latinx. HUD's changes to data element 3.06 reflect more inclusivity regarding a client's self-identification, and HUD is now allowing for up to 5 selections instead of just 1. Clients have the option to select as many response options that are applicable to them. For example, if a client identifies as transgender and female, they are now able to select both options. There is a new response option for a gender other than singularly female or male, which replaces the previous response option of gender nonconforming. There are now transgender and questioning options. Questioning is about the client questioning their own identity. This does not mean that clients can't answer this question. This means that the client genuinely states that they are unsure or are questioning their gender identity. Please note that the questioning response will not be flagged as an error and is an absolute value gender response. We will now focus on the changes to the program-specific data elements. The program-specific data elements provide information about the characteristics of clients, the services that are provided, and client outcomes. The program-specific data elements are collected across most federal partner programs. These are called common program-specific data elements. For each program-specific data element, multiple response categories are provided. To meet requirements for federally funded programs using HMIS, additional elements are required for different funding sources. These elements may change over time during a specific project stay or during a client's overall homelessness. There were changes to 3 of the program-specific data elements. These changes were to elements 4.09, formerly mental health problem, 4.02, formerly substance abuse, and 4.20, coordinated entry event. Please note that elements collected for head of household and adult household members only are indicated with an asterisk. The language surrounding mental health problem has been revised to mental health disorder throughout. The primary rationale for this change is that mental health problem is rather outdated language. The language surrounding substance abuse problem has also been revised to substance use disorder throughout. The primary rationale for this change is that substance abuse problem is also rather outdated language. Data element 4.20, coordinated entry event, is designed to capture key referral and placement events as well as the results of those events. The purpose of this element is to help communities understand the events that go into achieving desired and undesired results through the coordinated entry system. 3 new referral events have been added to this data element. The rationale for adding these 3 additional events are to collect additional referral information. These 3 options are referral to emergency assistance / flex fund / furniture, referral to emergency housing vouchers, better known as EHV, and referral to a housing stability voucher. We will now discuss the changes to the Federal Partner Program data elements. The new data standard changes affect 4 of the 5 Federal Partner Program funding sources. There were changes to COC, HOPWA, RI, and VA funded projects. HUD is introducing 3 new data elements to the HUD COC funded permanent supportive housing projects. C1, well-being, element C2, moving on assistance, and element C3, youth education status. Well-being data element is to be collected for all head of households enrolled in permanent supportive housing projects at project start, annual assessment, and project exit. The purpose of this data element is to better understand a client's personal well-being during their homelessness experience. The 4 questions associated with this element include: client perceives their life has value and worth. 2, client perceives they have support from others who will listen to problems. 3, client perceives they have a tendency to bounce back after hard times. And 4, client's frequency of feeling nervous, tense, worried, frustrated, or afraid. For questions 1 through 3, clients can select responses ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Responses for question 4 are frequency related. Once released, please refer to the COC Program HMIS manual for further guidance on how to collect this data from clients. Service category of moving on assistance provided is also being added for HUD COC PSH projects. Moving on enables individuals and families who are able and want to move on from permanent supportive housing to do so by providing them with a sustainable, affordable housing option through mainstream systems, and also providing the services and resources they need to have continued housing success. Element R7, General Health Status, was previously only required to be collected for HUD VASH and a few RI-funded projects only. It is now required to be collected for all head of households enrolled in COC-funded permanent supportive housing projects at the time of project start and project exit. There are 2 changes for RI-funded projects only. Data element R10 was previously only collected for female participants. HUD has removed the limitation on collection of this data solely on female participants to reflect that more than just people who identify as female can be pregnant. Data element R13 was also revised. The mental health disorder and alcohol substance use disorder language in both response options were updated. There were 3 updates for HOPWA-funded projects. For data element W1, the substance abuse language was updated to substance use disorder. There are new response options for data element W3. Receiving Ryan White-funded medical or dental assistance question was added, as well as a follow-up depending on the response to this question. A new prescribed antiretroviral data element was added and is data element W6. This data will be collected for all household members with HIV or AIDS. There are changes to 2 data elements for projects receiving VA funding, data elements V3 and V7. For data element V3, there are 2 specific changes. Previously, General Housing Stability Assistance Emergency Supplies and General Housing Stability Assistance Other were 2 separate fields. They have now been merged to General Housing Stability Assistance. There has also been a food assistance response option added as well. Data element V7 was fully revised from the fiscal year 2020 version. The element was renamed to remove SSVF as it may become applicable for other projects in the future. Changes to this data element were made to improve validity and reliability results. The data for this element will be collected at project start for head of households enrolled in a homeless prevention VA SSVF project. As you'll see here, the Is Homeless Prevention Targeting Screeners Required field is new and requires a yes or no response. Depending on the response to this question will determine whether the remaining questions need to be collected and input. If the response is no, the remainder of the collection for this element is not needed. If the response is yes, then the remaining responses should be collected and input. The following slides detail all of the details of the data fields and responses for data element V7. The HMIS team will host Coffee Talk office hours September 27th through the 29th. Feel free to attend any or all of these sessions if you have any questions or concerns regarding the data standards changes. If you have any questions or concerns that you would like addressed immediately, please feel free to reach out to the HMIS team. We can be reached via the HMIS support desk or by emailing either or both of us directly.